Dungeons and Dragons is changing forever, and I gotta say, it's absolutely terrifying. These are not great changes at all, and they've taken me by shock, honestly, the scope and scale of these changes. So what am I talking about? Well, recently it was leaked to certain content creators that D&D, the D&D Beyond as a platform is changing forever. It's getting an update, people. So what is changing then? Well, this was provided by Dungeon Scribe, who is a content creator, a homebrewer for Dungeons and Dragons. And the changes that we're seeing to D&D Beyond, according to them, are the following. $30 per month per player, a deauthorized OGL, well, we know about that one. Homebrew is getting banned at the base tiers, and stripped down gameplay for AI DMs. That is not a joke. So let's talk about this for a minute, because this has also been confirmed by D&D Shorts. They're a major YouTuber. And in fact, D&D Shorts has confirmed that this is what Chris Cow, the digital game vice president, plans for the future of Dungeons and Dragons. And they have confirmed as well that the $30 per month is for the highest tier, and that this includes monthly content drops. So anyone who has played a digital game, a mobile game, will know what this is about. This is to get you back in, get you invested in the ecosystem. So obviously, for Wizards of the Coast, this would represent a huge amount of money. This would increase the amount of money that's coming from every single table by about 10, by a degree of 10. What this means is, if they lose some of their player base, people who aren't willing to shell out cash for D&D Beyond subscriptions, well, it doesn't really matter, because they have to lose 10 people for every one person who pays. Let me put that another way. They could potentially lose 90% of the entire player base of Dungeons and Dragons, and they would be up money. So that's what the appeal is of implementing these sorts of subscription tiers. So forget your buy a book and be done for life. If you want to get access to it on this service, it looks like it's going to cost you continually. Now, next up as well, we see the deauthorization of the original open game license. I've talked about this loads of times on the channel. You can see my previous video on this topic. I go all over it there. Suffice to say, there was a statement from Wizards of the Coast recently, and they have not walked back anything of substance. People who are reporting on this as if Wizards have conceded or backpedaled in some way, they're wrong, unfortunately, and their plans are still the exact same. Nothing has changed. But also, what this lets us know, it gives a little bit of the rationale behind the deauthorization of the OGL. Now we know why the OGL is explicitly not covering virtual tabletops like Digital Foundry, and it's because Wizards of the Coast want to consolidate the market in their own platform. Or in other words, they want to have the monopoly. They want to be able to control who can play D&D and where, and they want it to be a captive audience. And I don't know, I think that that's kind of dangerous, honestly, when a single hobby gets cemented around a single company. You know, you start to see some crazy stuff like this. And then, of course, Homebrew Banned at base levels. Wow. Way to misunderstand the joy of Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games, right? This, I think, is probably one of the things that will shock most people. Now, they say Homebrew Banned at base tiers. I'm guessing that you're going to have to pay a special fee to input your own homebrew content if you're the DM. And as most people hopefully know, for a lot of DMs, most of the joy of these types of games is actually getting to create your own content, to build your own NPCs, to create your own magic weapons, and put them into the world. And for tables everywhere, this is super important. It makes a game of Dungeons and Dragons not just a generic game, a video game of Dungeons and Dragons. It makes a special game for your table, one that you get to experience, that's unique to you, that no one else has ever played. It makes it special, in other words. And I don't think that that can be replicated by just official content. Homebrew is the life force of this hobby. It's the essence, and the idea that it's going to be gated is absolutely anathema to everything that this hobby represents. I'm not one of those people who just hates Dungeons and Dragons. I don't. I actually quite enjoy it. I've played it a lot. I run groups for Dungeons and Dragons. But let me tell you, if Homebrew was banned, if everyone that I was playing with was in D&D Beyond and I was being asked to pay monthly to simply add Homebrew to my game, I wouldn't play Dungeons and Dragons. And I suspect that a lot of DMs are the same, but if there's only players for D&D, well, that's kind of dangerous, isn't it? And then finally, of course, we come to stripped down gameplay for AI DMs. Wow, does anybody else remember 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons? Because I do. I sure do. But obviously this is absurd, right? You can't replace DMs with AI. I mean, I thought so at least. Until I recently read an AI bot, ChatGPT, who was able to DM a game pretty convincingly. I mean, it wasn't incredible, but it was okay. And I can imagine that with enough concentrated effort, you could probably teach an AI bot to run a pre-written adventure pretty well. I will say though, that chatbot, it definitely seemed to be plagiarizing the World of Warcraft wiki a bit. But, you know, obviously this thing would be built from the ground up to run D&D adventures. It's actually a lot simpler than you think. You just create a surrounding environment, a swamp. You just tell the AI about everything about that swamp. You tell it about the dungeon of the Lizard King. All it needs to know is the stats of the monsters inside there, and people can be run through a dungeon, DM-less. Talk about your DM crisis. Why, Wizards of the Coast are automating that away. And I gotta be honest, I feel a little bit like a Luddite here, but as somebody who does DM games, I'm a little bit worried about my job prospects. And yeah, okay, it's all fun and games, but let's be honest, even from players' perspective, and I get that there's plenty of players who probably would welcome an AI DM, and I get it, I think it probably does have some sort of role, but I feel like automating DMs probably completely destroy something integral to this entire experience. Firstly, DMs are vital. The creativity that they bring to the table is super important to these games. There is a reason why people are doing this and we're not just playing a CRPG like Baldur's Gate. There is so much imagination and so much scope for gameplay. I suspect that these chatbots will struggle to run anything like a sandbox campaign. Anything outside of the pre-written adventure, they'll probably struggle quite a bit. And hence why Wizards of the Coast will probably force Dungeons and Dragons down into a more railroady kind of experience. Which I don't think most people want, honestly, but if it's the only game in town, if it's the quickest, easiest way to get a game, might be what people get. But this kind of takes the magic out of everything, doesn't it? Because one of the things I love about Dungeons and Dragons and all RPGs is that I can play them in the physical, in the real. This sounds like increasingly a digitization of everything. Now, we've heard rumors about some of the new employees at Hasbro Wizards, and it seems likely that these people have been hired to bring about a lot of these changes, that this is going to be the future of D&D Beyond. And of course, the new 6th edition Dungeons and Dragons 1D&D. Now, I have been warning about this. I've been warning about the monetization strategies because we've seen this in video games, and honestly, as shocking as some of this is, it doesn't completely surprise me. But there is a little bit of hope here because some other news was dropped as well. And that is that apparently over 40,000 subscriptions on D&D Beyond have been cancelled so far in response to all of the madness that is going on with the OGL and Dungeons and Dragons right now. Players have shown up in a really big way. They have been extremely activist, they've been extremely vocal, and they have supported third-party publishers. And now they are canceling all their subscriptions from D&D Beyond. And if that happens, that is disastrous to these plans. And if you're interested in seeing how the recent statement from Wizards of the Coast is no backpedaling whatsoever, and they are convinced that they are correct and that they are going to push ahead with this, check out this video here. And as always, a huge thanks to my patrons, especially Sonic Bread and Crypto Kev, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.